This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Kenobi. This is your spoiler-free place for Star Wars community and conversation. I'm your host, Dan Zayer. We are going to talk tonight about Part 3 of Disney Plus' series Obi-Wan Kenobi. Joining me is the Dream Team that we had for Parts 1 and 2. They have graciously offered to come back for Part 3, so let's bring them in first. Mr. Tom Gross.
Hello there. Good to be here back on the big show talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Did you say hello there on purpose?
Oh, I did not. Because I normally say, hello, everybody. Or something like that. So I tried to shake it up a little.
I like it spicy. Speaking of spicy, he always brings the spicy. Mr. Cory Clubb.
Well, hello there.
Now, that was on purpose.
Well, that was on purpose. Yeah, it was. You kind of made me do it. But
it's true.
You didn't make me do it. You talked me into it. But I like it. I'm excited. It was a great episode and looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, this is quite a powerhouse of an episode. When we recorded parts 1 and 2, you and I had seen part 3, but Tom had not. And now you have, I hope. Otherwise, this is going to be a really unusual
really
conversation. Awkward. So, Tom, I'm going to start with you.
See the big smile on my face?
Oh, well,
not everybody else does, but you two do.
I do.
I have seen episode 3.
Let's do a letter grade and then just overall reactions to the episode, Tom.
Oh man! So I saved my A+ for this one. Oh boy, A+.
You only get one? I didn't know that.
He's a strict grader.
Oh, I see.
Yes, that's right. Very strict. No, I loved this episode. It gave me everything that I wanted. I think it gave me everything I wanted. Well, no, it certainly did. What I'm now waiting for are things that I didn't know that I wanted. But this was great. Really was wonderful to see Vader and some of the ways that Vader was very much like Anakin. So I think I'll just stop right there. That my initial reaction is that I thought it was wonderful.
Okay, Cory, what about you?
You know, I agree. I'll see. I want to give it an A+, but there's some part of me that wants to give it a lower grade. What's next? A? Is it just a solid A?
Yeah, still good.
I'm going to give it just a solid A. I mean, there was some. I think this is an excellent episode. You might convince me to put it in an A+ category, but this is the meat, right? Meat because we want from a Kenobi episode. We want to see the face off and the battle between these two. But was it too premature? We'll have to wait and see.
It is an A+ for me. A very easy A+, but I'm not going to say it was wonderful. I thought it was a very upsetting episode. Really traumatic, very emotional, really showcases the pure evil, true good versus evil here. There's a lot of power in this episode, but there's also a lot of really memorable moments. So I want to do this one a little bit differently than we did last time, or we've done other reviews of other Star Wars Disney Plus shows. I'm just going to segment specific moments and lines, and then we're just going to talk about it. We're going to see what happens. So I think the first thing is Obi-Wan Kenobi is meditating. He's trying to reach out to his master, Qui-Gon Jinn. He needs some direction. He's very upset by what he experienced in part 2. And then we get this very extended sequence. Ever since the 80s with Michael Keaton, we love seeing that people putting on their outfits. And Vader, as he is getting his armor put on, we see a lot. We experience a lot. We feel a lot, much like Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I'm actually going to start on this one. To me, it's super cool because it's Vader and you're just thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, am I actually seeing this? Is this actually happening? There's a lot of smoke, some beautiful camera work. But you also see severed limbs. You also see a lot of robotics. You also see that he really is more machine than man, as Obi-Wan tells us in A New Hope. And it's upsetting, but you also can't help but feel this overwhelming sense of power and awe that is Darth Vader. I think I like that he's trying to talk to Qui-Gon Jinn. It's not working because I feel like Obi-Wan is still very much searching for his identity in the Force yet again, because he's denied a huge part of himself for a lot of important reasons, but also fear is also predicating a lot of that. But I think there's a lot here besides, gee whiz, it's cool. And it is insanely cool. Don't get me wrong. But it shows you how tragic Anakin Skywalker. I mean, when he's Anakin, he's a powerhouse of Jedi. He's a handsome guy. And now he's like he's more machine than man. I don't know what else to say. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought this was really cool because on top of the assembling of Darth Vader, you also get this montage of audio and of voices that I think is it. There's so many lines, and I was going to start writing them down, and then they were just flying right by, so I didn't write them down. But so many of them, side by side, would not have made sense in any other place, because some were like building up Obi-Wan as a Jedi or as a Force user, and others were like anger and rage. So I thought that was interesting juxtaposition with the assembling of Vader and the conflict in Obi-Wan Kenobi's mind. I have to say the image that really struck me as I watched this putting together of Darth Vader was when the chest plate goes in. And I'm like, there are like spikes on that are like, they're like plugs. And that plugs in right where his chest or his heart would be. And it just, I don't know. I felt like I felt it going in there. And I was like, man, that defines exactly what it was so moving to you, Dan. You said it twice, more machine than man.
Yeah.
And when that chest piece goes on, I was like, oh, that replaces the heart. That replaces like his feelings. And so it was a striking way to open the episode. I will say that when it opens that way and he's there in meditation, I knew we weren't going to hear from Qui-Gon Jinn. I just knew, because episodes 1 and 2 set up that Obi-Wan Kenobi has completely lost connection with the Force. Completely. That's strong. He has very much weakened or lost his connection to the Force. And so I knew it wasn't going to work, but boy, this is not what I was expecting, is like almost a direct connection to Vader.
Cory.
Yeah, for me, this is interesting because, like we said, he's still reeling from the revelation that Anakin's still alive. I mean, he's even more disconnected. Like you said, he's even. You think he was disconnected before? He's even more so now. I think he's even in dire straits. He doesn't know what thoughts are real, what thoughts are unreal, and I think he's just in a state of confusion and struggle. It's interesting to see him in this state because, like we said, this last episode about the show was he's always been the top of his game, the powerful Jedi, the one that knows what's going on. He's in control, and here he is completely opposite. And again, kudos to Ian McGregor for pulling that off and making us feel that way as fans. I think I totally get that. He does a great job, even through this entire episode, just of feeling very disconnected in that Jedi role. And so he can't really give like a lot of really guidance to the young Leia, right? Too, I think she's also kind of like, what are we gonna do next? What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen next? And I think he's just like he doesn't know. I don't even know what to do. It's interesting to see that he's always been good with young people, and I think that this, even in that characteristic moment, he's not sure what he's going to do next. And like you said, assembling Vader is it's almost something out of like a Frankenstein movie. And it's interesting to see him in this state too, because it's the fact that it's like a daily routine. You have to do this every day to get ready to get the pants on and get ready to go to work. But it's interesting to me too is the fact that like how much connection he have to humanity. And we see that he, like you said, he's just more machine. So it shows that he is so disconnected from everything, but so strong in his hate and his anger. And there's no words in that scene too. I thought it was interesting assembling the Vader. There's no like, oh, that turn right, turn left, or just to hit it a little bit more, just to get it just right. No, he's just assembling. This is like you said, Tom. It's grueling to him. Maybe it's painful, right? So it's interesting the fact that maybe even during that process, he is building that anger. You can almost feel like it's building inside him as he's assembling his body.
I agree, and then you got that nice background of Mustafar with the fire constantly raging, which again, hello metaphor. Remember in the original X-Men movie when someone says, "Does it hurt?" and he says, "Every time." Every time he pops out his claws. So I hadn't even thought about the fact until you mentioned that, Tom, that maybe it's painful to put it on. I mean, I assume if he gets out of that bacta, and the injuries are so severe that he's never going to heal fully. I mean, we know Boba Fett can, because we saw the book of Boba Fett. Eventually, the bacta can get you back to full health, but not to the degree.
You don't have a body.
Exactly. It doesn't regrow limbs. Right. Not to the degree. I mean, the amount of burning and the scarring and it's pretty intense. So this whole episode has actually had me look at Vader differently than I ever had before. The more machine than man really stood out, and then the cruelty, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But there is a moment early on, guys, a really, really beautiful moment. I've had the good fortune to write about the Force for the Star Wars book. We've talked about the Force many times, thought about the Force many times. But then she says, Leia is upset, not upset, but she's saying, hey, can't we get this ship to go any faster? A very human child thing to say on a long journey. How does it work? What does it feel like? And then Ben says something quite lovely. He says, have you ever been afraid of the dark? How does it feel when you turn on the light? And she says, I feel safe. He said, yes, it feels like that. I mean, take it away, Tom.
That's my A+ moment right there. I mean, there's a few of them, but when I say that this is a wonderful, I agree with you. It's difficult to call this episode wonderful, but these moments, and there's, I don't know, a couple of them at least, where this is what makes it wonderful. And can I just say, my oldest daughter, Kaylee, every time Leia shows up on the screen, she just goes, oh, she's just so cute. I can see her growing up into Princess Leia every single time that comes on. She just has another comment about her. And so I just I've really come to love this actress. But this moment is so strong because it gives us another way, us, the fans, the viewers, people who are invested in the story. It gives us another way to understand what the Force is like. And what great choice of words when he says that. And you can see in Kenobi's eyes, he's tired. I just feel like, did they make Ewan McGregor stay up all night before recording this episode? Because he looks exhausted through the entire thing. Like his relearning of how to be Obi-Wan Kenobi is exhausting on him. Now, I don't know if that's intentional, but certainly he definitely looks ragged. And so the fact that he's able to come up with this analogy of what the Force feels like, I was thinking that Kanan gives Ezra I just can't remember it right now. Kanan gives Ezra a description of the Force that was very tangible as well. And that's what this felt like. But this little scene right here is the first one where I was like, this is an A+. I'm telling you right now, can't wait for the rest of it. Cory, what do you think?
Yeah, I love the way that he describes the Force here. It's so simplistic and everyone can understand it. Everyone. Yep. That's what I think it's like. I would love to be in that writer's room to think like, how would you describe the Force in a simplistic way that a child, but also a grown adult, 90-year-old adult could understand. It's just so simplistic that being afraid of the dark is such a human nature thing. Like for her to understand that and perceive that, even as an adult hearing that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. And I was thinking back through the High Republic book, Avar Chris, where she uses like music and she connects it with a melody.
That's how she hears the Force.
So it's so cool to see another person see it in a certain way. How it feels. And it's the one thing too I think about how Obi-Wan describes it in A New Hope. It binds us, it pulls us together. It's all made of all living things. Some of that effect, but like it's a different interpretation of it. Kind of a general sense of what it is versus how it feels. So this is really cool to see those those two pieces be connected together from him. And I'd be interested to see what other Jedi think, or other Force users feel, and what they have could explain it in a certain way, or maybe it's different for everybody, or is it the same for everybody. So it's interesting that's like that for Obi-Wan, and he's desperately trying to flip that light back on, isn't he? You could say he's definitely afraid at this moment.
I agree. That's good. I like that.
Good point.
So for as long as storytellers have been telling stories, light has been symbolic for warmth, for safety, for inspiration, for the way to go. You look to the light, follow the light, follow the yellow brick road, everything, the light side. I could point to so many different mythologies and show you how light, and of course, from a Christian perspective, in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, but also light, the light of Christ. Now, all of these things, I'm not saying the Force is Christ, because it's not. It's a lot. It's a big combination. Actually, we talked about this on my mythology panel at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim just a few weeks ago. But the Force is light. It's life. And it illuminates. It gets rid of light. Gets rid of shadows. Light gets rid of darkness. So light, by its nature, if darkness makes you afraid, turning on a light makes you not afraid. So when I'm in touch with the Force, I am not afraid. That's what being a Jedi is, and why it's so important. That's why I think it's so cool that, because his connection to the Force is somewhat severed by his own choice, by his lack of practice in the Force to keep himself safe and hidden. It's showing here, I need that light. It's not a coincidence that at the end of this, there's just a bunch of darkness when he fights Vader at the end. So I think it's really profound and really quite lovely. All right, we're going to move on from that. I think the name of the mining system is Mapuzo, if I understood.
Excuse you.
Thank you. If I understood that correctly. There's this really weird moment where when they're walking along this path, there literally is a path. He sees someone in a brown robe up front. And at first I thought it was Qui-Gon. And he goes, no, that's Anakin. And it was Anakin in his scarred visage from far away. So whether that's just Obi-Wan's mind playing tricks on him, I do not think that Anakin is consciously sending an astral projection of himself. But I think Obi-Wan has a guilty conscience here. And then speaking of conscience, I don't know what's going on with the third sister, but when she and the fifth brother are arguing in the Inquisitor's base, which is so cool looking, he says, "You're going to get what's coming to you." And she says, "I hope so. I certainly hope so." I'm certainly not going to speculate on what that means, but I think they've both got something going on. I think it's fair to say that Obi-Wan and the third sister are the main characters in this overall arc, with Leia being sort of a secondary character. But just anything with either of those things, or him seeing Anakin, or the third sister's comments, or anything you guys want to talk about with that particular portion.
Yeah, it took me it was the second time that I watched it that I realized that was likely Anakin. The first time I didn't know. I thought, actually, the first time I saw it, I thought that was who he was supposed to meet with.
Oh,
like that was the
you know what, that crossed my mind at first too.
Yeah, and so the second time I was like, oh, that's Anakin. And I didn't really know where to go with that, because I agree with you. I don't believe for a second that it was Anakin projecting, because then that would establish that Anakin knows exactly where he is, I think. And so
I agree.
So and it's funny because the way the show opens, he's reaching out to Qui-Gon, but it's Anakin who is commanding his thoughts at that moment. And so, that what do you see out of the corner of your eye, and you look, and then he's gone, is going to be Anakin. Also feels like it's, foreshadowing what's coming in this episode. A a meeting of some sort. And then third sister, she just last episode of Coffee with Kenobi, we talked about just how like raw and open sore raging she is. And that does not end here. So I don't know. I'll let you guys talk about her or whatever else you want to talk about with seeing Anakin.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. I thought that it was their contact or whoever they were supposed to meet. And then my kid pointed out to me it was Anakin, and you would be. He's having these visions or something. It's on your mind, right? You're constantly thinking about it. It's like it tells us as audience that he's also trying to navigate this strange planet with Leia, figure out where to go, meet this person he's never met before. But then also you could tell his peace of mind is still rolling with the thought of Anakin being alive, and just like, well, that's how I remember seeing him. And is that him? It's like, it's just like you're just furthering Obi-Wan's disillusionment with himself, with his connection to the Force. And it is interesting the way they're personifying that in a sense. Just making him go a little crazy. It's kind of he's going bonkers a little bit. With Reva, it's cool to see these Inquisitors jockey for position, and it really makes me feel like I really like these characters. They've really played them very well. They are stepping on each other to get the next tidbit or the next piece of news, or one up on each other to show favor. And it's just interesting to see, like you said, Reva seems like she's just a little bit out of context too. She seems a little obsessed with doing this, and she's going to get to her end, to whatever that might be possible. She's going to break the rules in a sense, and that's exactly what Sith do, right? So they step on each other to get to the top, and want to get position of power. And we don't know if that's how clear that is for her yet in her story arc, which makes her just interesting to me, to understand her more and understand why she's doing what she's doing and breaking the rules. Because I think we might have said this in the last episode that she doesn't have any quote modifications that we know of. She's mostly human, so I would expect her to be up in the correct mindset of what her actions are. And it's interesting that most of the other Inquisitors and even Vader himself are somewhat machine or whatnot, or have some kind of modifications or something going on. So that's interesting to me that she is kind of pure in that sense, in the sense of just making her way through these other Inquisitors. And it's interesting to see her do what she does in this episode and take chances, even with Vader present.
I also think you can't help but wonder, like, is Deborah Chow or the creators of this series, are we supposed to feel sympathy or something for the third sister? We don't have a reason why. We've seen nothing but cruelty from her. We've seen that she's got motivation. But when the fact that we get to see an introspective side of her, where she says she certainly hopes she's going to get what's coming to her. I mean, they're doing a great job of creating that suspense and making you think, well, there could be more to this person than meets the eye. I don't know, but I ultimately got to see probe droids being launched, which makes me happy because I love probe droids. Then there's this ride sequence where Obi-Wan and these stormtrooper hitchhikers show up. This whole episode is great with tension and just making you kind of feel on the edge of your seat throughout, more so than I think. I mean, the first two do that to a degree, but this one kind of the whole time you feel very tense and nervous. There's this wonderful moment when he says he's trying to keep his covers. We're actually farmers. Sometimes when I look into Lula's, I see her mother's face, and he's not lying, but he's talking about Padme. And then he has this wonderful moment of reflection where he talks about, he thinks that he had a brother. And, it's kind of said in a very genteel way, but then it happens. I mean, I don't really know what else we could say about it other than I think we need to at least point out the fact that he does remember moments or images. He remembers his mother's shawl. I think he said his father's hands. And then he thinks and then a baby, he thinks he had a brother, but he doesn't remember. And he also talks about the fact that he, I was taken from my family too, and you can't help but question. I get it, but I also don't get it. The fact that you can't be with your family or have relationships if you want to be a Jedi, but being a Jedi by its nature is all about compassion. So it's just, again, it's quite a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah, they definitely play up the fact that there's he has history with these characters, and we know as fans of all that history from the Clone Wars, from the episodes 1 through 3, and it's almost heart-wrenching to have him relive these memories, even as she's asking some questions, and he's kind of mysteriously telling her the facts, and he's able to be a little candid with her, which is so interesting to me that he's opened up to Leia Skywalker of all people, and the fact that she obviously wouldn't know, but like he is. Again, I feel like I'm just estranged along with Obi-Wan. He has a revelation. He's wandering through this mysterious planet, trying to meet this contact. He's got these ideas running through his head. He's trying to analyze his life, right? He's thinking back to, I was taken from my parents too, and I might have had a brother. I might have these memories that are scattered. I wonder if he's working up the courage to try to, if he doesn't encounter Vader or Anakin, what would I say? What I want to do? In the sense of like, well, I'd want to know more about my family. I want to be at peace at certain things. It's just interesting. Like he's like working something up in his mind where he's like trying to figure out what's right, what's wrong, what's true, what's untrue. And I feel for him. It's hard. And like you said, the tension is fantastic. The little cargo ride there up to the gates and then, just those stormtroopers were like kind of asking questions. You're just like, there's this little itch of what's going to happen next. And they do a great job with this. I thought it was a little bit kind of long, but then I was like, it feels right. I mean, it feels like they're building on something, and we do get a big takeaway towards the second half of this episode.
So, Tom, I want to hear what you think about this, but I also want to ask you, does this series have a high rewatchability to it? We're only halfway through, but I find myself when I rewatch these, it's different than Mando. I think the stakes are higher. The narrative is much richer and more complex and more emotional for me as I watch them. So sometimes I'm like, I love this. It's so profound, but I don't see myself rewatching it again and again and again because these emotional beats just hit so hard. I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting because this series. I don't know. I guess I can't say. I think I'm mixing my mind in with some of the Marvel series. Many of the Marvel series, I don't feel like I need to watch them 2, 3, 4 times. This one though, I've been really excited to. So in our house, I've been watching it by myself first, not for any other reason other than up to this point, it's been the most convenient for me to watch it on my own.
Sure.
And I look forward to watching it a second time with my family and being able to talk about it and whatnot. But I kind of want to go back and see these 3 again. I'm with you. The emotional toll is a little high, but at the same toll, that's not the right word. It just has some emotional moments. I like your beaches, your emotional beaches. But I don't mind watching them again because I have to say what I gained from the first viewing of episode 3 and the second viewing was a lot. There's a lot that for some reason, somehow I missed a line, I missed a name, something, and so I do kind of want to watch it again. But this particular scene we're talking about, I'm really glad I got a second viewing of it for this reason. You talk about the tension, but then we talk about a softness in the conversation between Obi-Wan and Leia. When they first get on that transport and Obi-Wan walks around the back of it and they pan to the left and you see the Imperial symbol on the back. It's like a semi-truck. It's like a semi-truck then you realize that the semi-truck is pulling something not good. And you see that. And actually, Kaylee gasped a little bit when she was, and I said, I know, right? And they got on and they start riding. And then when the stormtroopers come about, you're like, oh boy, what's going to happen? And then they get on the transport with them. I mean, uncomfortable and fun. Interestingly, and I think this goes to show a little bit about both Obi-Wan and Leia. where they are, or at least where Obi-Wan is right now. Leia maintains her cool. She maintains the story.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan is the one who slips and calls her Leia. And that stormtrooper becomes very agitated at that. You said she was Lula. And then he, of course, he smooths it over beautifully. And then that allows us to have that moment. And I don't know, the line that really struck me in this scene is when Leia says, "Are you my father?" Which reminds me of that Dr. Seuss book that's actually Are You My Mother? But what I think is really touching, first of all, the question, but then his response to me is what's touching, because it shows how much he has come to adore her. Because he says something like, "I certainly wish I were."
Yeah. She says, "Are you my real father?"
Yeah.
And he says, and he looks at her, he turns his body and he kind of puts his arm up and he says, "I certainly wish I were."
I mean, how sweet is that? And how much that shows that he has really come to care for her and show, as you said, Dan, the compassion for her. And then that question is what leads him into talking about his memories of his family and making the connection that neither one of them are from the families originally that they originally came. And so he makes that connection with her there. And can I just say so we have that nice moment and then they come upon the gate. I just have to say that moment where the stormtrooper falls off of the tower and he falls onto the gate.
It's bisected.
It's not funny. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh about it, but both of us we both, like, Kaylee looked at me, mouth agape, and I looked at her just because I'd seen it. I was just like, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's toll here. And I think what I enjoyed most about this is he doesn't, and Cory, you said this in the last episode, he doesn't even think twice to grab his lightsaber. He first goes for the pistol because he's still protecting his identity. He even says to somebody somewhere in here, he says, "Oh, it's coming up," but he says one more time, "I'm Ben. I am Ben." Kind of denying his who he is. So anyway, that's right.
And I love all this, again, this fight choreography that Deborah Chow is so great with. But him using a blaster in Kung Fu and just the different sort of wrestling moves it's just great. But I really think we need let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk all about Vader, because there are a couple of scenes with Vader here that I never thought I would see in my life. And here we are. So let's take the break and get to that. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
We are back, and it is time to unleash Darth Vader, because I think that is probably the best way to describe what we are about to see. In my mind, there are two big moments. One is Vader's arrival and what happens in that little village, and then the actual fight / showdown itself. And I mean, really, I think we should spend the rest of the show just on those parts. There is a nice moment where Leia is disappointed that the load lifter can't speak, because she says, "What if he has something to say?" Yet again, even at a young age, even at the age of 10, Leia shows compassion for everyone and everything, which is quite lovely. But and then we also find out that we hear Quinlan Voss, that there's like this underground, it's called the Path. And this is how Jedi and others are rescued and sent there, given new identities. And I think that's really cool. And I hope we get to see more of that in different lore and perhaps in the series itself. But we need to talk about Vader. Tom, instead of me describing it, what happens, why don't you kind of start us off with when Obi-Wan first realizes who's there and then what happens in the village?
So when Vader, so they were about to escape down the path, and Obi-Wan keels over, and I don't know, you knew when that happened that it was going to be something big. It very much reminded me of when they were on the Millennium Falcon, and Alderaan is destroyed, and Obi-Wan sort of, stumbles and said, "There's been a disturbance in the Force," and it was almost the exact kind of feeling, and you knew, you knew exactly what that meant, and so as Obi-Wan approaches the door to the outside, I was feeling that pressure that he must feel. It's so if we build on the description of what the Force is, you turn the light on and you feel safe. That's got to be that feeling of when, especially in the state that Obi-Wan is in with the Force, it's got to be like someone shutting the light off on him. And he probably feels like he's stumbling through the dark to look out the door and see, the stormtroopers kind of giving that premonition that something horrible is coming. And then he comes around the corner and you see the first thing you see, going back to more machine than man, first thing you see with Vader are the lights. And then you perceive the darkness of his silhouette. And then his mask steps into the light, and you know it is Darth Vader. And it's such a powerful, oh man, it is a powerful moment. That whole, what is that, about 15 seconds of screen time, you just can really feel the dread of it all.
Yeah, and then Cory, on top of that, when Vader shows up and he walks down that little street,
Main Street USA, yeah,
and there's anything but the warmth of Main Street USA in that sequence for sure.
For sure, yeah. This is the Vader I remember from Rogue One. That the hallway scene, him at the height of his power, just anger flowing through him. I felt scared. I mean, like, these are villagers who have done nothing wrong. They're being punished for just being there, just for living, and that's just it shows us the anger and the hatred flowing through Anakin. He's dragging villagers along the dirt. He's choking them. He's breaking their necks, which I thought was very violent.
Wasn't that a kid?
No, I think it was just an adult, a young adult, or something. Yeah. But still, like, I mean, that's jarring. The fact that for viewers, just for him to do that, because we see him do that in A New Hope, where he slowly chokes people out or things like that. But it's like a power is like he's just choking them for the sake of that. But this is just a quick, like, snap of the fingers, it's over. And he's obviously toying with Kenobi. He's wanting to draw him out. And oh man, if you think he was scared before, he's got to be scared now, right? He's got to be like, this is a nightmare. This is not happening. This is, what am I supposed to do? What, I can't go out there. Obviously, I'm in no state of battle this guy, and I can't, but I've got to do something. Like you mentioned, like he has this. Well, the Inquisitor said it in the first episode. They have this itch thing to scratch to do good, to do right, justification, in their aura, and so it's like, what do you do? This has got to be the scariest thing he's ever faced.
When Obi-Wan starts to react the way that he does, you always hear with the dark side that you feel cold. And Luke says on Dagobah, I feel cold. Death. The dark side, that is. The way that Obi-Wan reacts, and again, tremendous acting by Ewan McGregor, it's almost like he spiritually gets the wind knocked out of him. Like you never get, when you're a kid or whatever, you get punched in the stomach and it kind of takes your breath away. It was like a spiritual reaction to that moment. It was very, very stunning. And yet he can't help but stare. Like he wants to see. He knows he needs to get away. He tells Leia to get away, but he can't stop himself from looking at this nightmare that's walking towards him that was his dear friend, his close friend, like his brother. So the Vader part was scary. That was like Michael Myers-ish, stalking, freaky. You don't know, and Vader's so unpredictable. And so it was really traumatic to a degree, especially as a big Vader fan, just how awful and yucky it was. But the challenge for me in this episode, was it enough? I mean, he kills someone, he murders someone, he snaps their neck. That's enough. That's enough. Let's be clear on that. He makes someone float out of a window and just raise there while he's strangling them. We don't actually see what happens to that person. I think they survive because a bunch of people surround them. But was Vader in many ways. It's almost like he was holding back. And maybe I'm thinking of when Palpatine fights Savage Opress and Darth Maul in the Clone Wars, and he just gets everybody crazy. Obviously, Palpatine's so much stronger than all of them. I mean, well, maybe not. I guess that's arguable. But in many ways, the attention and the anticipation was the horrific part in seeing what he does. But really, Vader, besides that murder, which again is more than enough to be atrocious, there really, I mean, I feel like he could have done a heck of a lot more. I mean, these are just innocent people, so he has nothing to prove. Is he probably trying to get Obi-Wan to come out? Perhaps. Yeah. Is he just angry and frustrated? Maybe. But I just feel like, if anything, something was missing from that scene. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. But I guess where I went with it was exactly what both you and Cory said, Dan, is I really think he was doing this to draw Obi-Wan out. You know, he's to a sense kind of torturing them by dragging that one along by his neck down the street. You know, he does snap the neck of one with just a flick of the wrist. I mean, the camera work on that was terrible, but magnificent.
Yes.
Because it was just a quick shot, but you see his neck, and if you're really watching, you see his wrist turn, and then the neck snap, and then it's done, and it kind of just gives you just enough to sort of. But I think I know what you're saying. It felt like there should be more, but I can't
like
think
special
of
effects
more.
wise, I feel like there was much more that it could have been done, and
Perhaps.
maybe I just need to hear direction on why they made the choice. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just aware of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe they didn't want to. I mean, there's still lots to come, so perhaps they didn't want to put all the cards down on the table right away.
Sure, and I don't want a bloodbath. I just thought there's more they can do with Vader, and we've seen it already in live action. He's sort of holding back, even though he's not holding back. And I just found it. It worked for me very well. It was very effective, very emotional. It was like, oh my gosh, should I be letting Mason watch this to that degree? But I was just aware that there was something, I don't know, missing, or I don't know. What do you think, Cory?
Yeah, I don't know if anything is missing. I think it was done just the way it was supposed to be. Because, like you said, you want to show all your cards, right? So we know the lightsaber battle is coming. We know something worse is happening, right? What can make this worse? It's just a lead up. It's just knowing that he's still at the height of his power. That's, I think, too, as Vader is very much in control of what he's doing and knows exactly what he's doing. He's a cat playing with a mouse type thing. Toying with them. So, is that good enough for Vader? That's what I want to know too. Is this just child's play to him? Is he wanting to rematch Kenobi or get revenge on Kenobi in his own way? You know what I'm saying? Like, we get further into that in this episode, but like, to me, as I wondered this too, as like, is he want Kenobi to be, to his full strength, to really, feel like there's a good tact to make it a fair fight. Does he want a fair fight? I don't know, and maybe he doesn't. But interesting too is like, it's, if you saw a weak old person on the ground and it just seems like you would be like, I'm disgusted with you. You're not even a match for me. You're nothing to me.
Oh, I agree.
So yeah.
I agree. I think I just wanted to see more like Force antics. Less like him like raising multiple people up at once and just tossing them aside. Maybe something like that.
So this brings to mind something that I've been wanting to talk about since we brought up Vader. That takes me back to the conversation you had with Hayden Christensen.
Mm-hmm. I like that sentence so much. I'll say, go ahead.
It is magnificent. And we talked a little bit about this when we were at Celebration. I brought it up when we were in the room and getting ready for the day, and where I don't remember what the question exactly was, but what Hayden Christensen, the way he answered, he said he thinks of Vader and Anakin as one. Mm-hmm. And that's never been the way that I've seen it. So now, in the context of what we've seen, I have a hard time deciding in my mind who is this walking down the street? We see Darth Vader, but is it Anakin? And does Anakin really know that Obi-Wan is out of touch with the Force? So is Anakin holding, or Vader holding back to see what type of play is he waiting for Obi-Wan to make a play?
Right.
That could be, because in his mind, I'm sure Obi-Wan is, and I think that's fair to say, is larger than life and defeated him. So who knows?
Yeah.
That's good. Well, let's talk about the duel. We need to talk about the actual fight itself. What have you become? Obi-Wan says, and Darth Vader answers, I am what you made me. And I think we need to say again, if it hasn't been emphasized yet enough, James Earl Jones is the voice of Darth Vader. The filtering, whatever they're using, is stronger than it's ever been. I think it's like vintage original trilogy Vader sounding. It's magnificent. It's glorious. Seeing Darth Vader back is everything and more than we could ever dream or expect. And it's wonderful. But we need to talk about the duel. There's a lot of stuff. I don't really want to go through it beat by beat. But I want to know what stands out to you guys about it and why you think it's important. And let's change up a little bit. Cory, why don't you start with this one?
Sure. Yeah, like we just started talking about like him walking through the village and just like it was simplistic to him to pick on the villagers like he did. And yet here he is kind of stalking towards Obi-Wan. And I didn't think that Obi-Wan was going to ignite his lightsaber. I was kind of freaking out. I was like, dude, get it out right now. Like this is going down. You need to do something. You can't talk away out of this one. This is not going to be good. And that's, again, you said, like, well, should he have done more? Like, we've already got that. We know he's going to do, something bad is happening. And, again, we've talked about this, too, is Kenobi being freaked out. And I was like, as a fan, I kind of didn't really, it doesn't mesh for me for some reason. I feel like, I don't feel like I should be seeing this because I always foresee their rematch being in A New Hope. And I think that's the one that I always think about when, you know, I am now the master and you're but the learner, or something like that he says in New Hope. And I was like, what more do they have to duel or to speak to? You know, it's just, I find that as a fan, having a hard time connecting this duel with that duel. And this is obviously a lot more modern take. It's shot very beautifully.
Yes.
Again, the acting, you said that the voice is over and acting is fantastic. Like, we're at the height of, you know, filmmaking today. And here we are with a classic scene that should be set in the 1970s. And it's interesting to me. It's like, it feels like it shouldn't be happening to me, but I want it to happen as a fan too. I want to see what they have to say. What do they have to, you know, how are they going to make this happen? And it was a good battle because I felt like, again, I felt like Obi-Wan was trying to just stick out his lightsaber and just try to deflect something, you know. But again, I was like, Vader is so strong. He's toying with him still. He's still messing with him. And so, like, he could finish him off as easy as possible. Then we get to the scene where he knocks over the little crystals or whatever they are on the ground, the things, and ignites them with his lightsaber, which I thought was, that's a great effect. That was a great effect. And here we see fire again, that rage, that power. And he says, you will suffer, or something like that. And it burns. And starts burning. Oh, and I was like, okay, he didn't want to start up fight. He just wanted to basically torture him. And we've seen that through the original trilogy as well. He tortures people. And he must enjoy it, right? So to the fact that, like, you know, I'm going to get to the bottom of this, or I'm going to get my revenge. I've been tortured, so I'm going to torture others. And it's again, you said with Mason, she'd be watching this. Like, I kind of like, I mean, this is kind of getting gruesome. Like, this is not an easy thing to see. And so, but then again, like, it's exactly what Vader would do. I'm trying to think through things like, well, what would Vader do in this? This is exactly what he would do. So I didn't know how it was going to end. I was on pins and needles in the fact that, like, will he get out of this? I mean, what's going to happen next? He obviously can't kill him because we know what happens as fans in the trilogy. But, like, I just didn't know, like, there's so many things that could be happening, and him in the height of his power, and we see this go on and whatnot, and the rebel, rebel spy is kind of helping Obi-Wan, and the stormtroopers come up and such. But to me, I felt like, okay, Vader's the height of his power, and it, like, you know, ignites those flames, and then he takes them away, like he makes them go away. Why can't he just do that again and capture and choke Obi-Wan or pull Obi-Wan towards him? Like, to me, I felt like he's letting him. I guess again, he's like a cat playing the mouse type thing. Like, what is his end goal? You know, that's the thing we haven't heard yet. What's Vader looking to do? Does he want to just make him suffer, make him run for his life, freak him out? You know, I don't know. It's just, to me, I felt like there could have been more there. There could have been more something.
Interesting.
But
boy, do I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. But Tom, you go right ahead.
Tom.
So I'll first address my thoughts of what your question is there, Cory, and then I'll talk about the lightsaber duel. There's so many times in Star Wars where Vader almost concedes defeat, like he knows he's been bested, and so he just sort of watches it conclude. When the Falcon escapes from Hoth, he's there. He could grab the Falcon with the Force and but it's almost like he's a gentleman in war, to where if he's been beaten, he lets it happen. We also see this from the Grand Inquisitor and the Rebels too, where the Grand Inquisitor, when he's bested, he just sort of collects his toys and goes back to the drawing board. And so we see that magnificent moment where the fire is reignited by the Rebel spy, and there's that barrier between Obi-Wan, the load lifter droid, and you see a sort of it's not a close-up, but it's a mid shot of Vader with the flames in front of him, and you can see them in like the eyelids or the eyeballs. You just see fire, and he's just sort of observing and watching what's happening. When you're right, Cory, he could have probably just reached to the Force and drug Obi-Wan back into that fire, or pushed the droid away or something. But it's almost like Vader just concedes, and he says, "Okay, I've been bested here. There will be many more times."
Has it been bested though? Because he had the upper hand the whole time.
Not by Obi-Wan, but by circumstance and by, you know, he lets him get out of the fire, doesn't he? Or he doesn't push him out of the fire? Obi-Wan calls that, right?
Well, when it's my turn, I'm going to address all this. But I want to know what you think about
the lightsaber.
I want you to say about the duel itself. Cory brought up an interesting thing that's been talked about a lot online. Should this duel have even happened?
Okay, so my feeling of the duel was, to me, it was to be expected. It doesn't play with the storyline, the greater storyline in my mind. It really works. And what I enjoy about it, just a few takeaways from it. Number one, most of it has to do with just the filming of it. I think the filming of it is absolutely beautiful. Really, one thing that really resonated with me was, film-wise, is how bright the lightsabers were in this darkness. Yes. Especially the way it illuminates each one of them. Obi-Wan illuminated in blue, Vader illuminated in red, and they're stark contrast to the darkness around them, which I really, really liked. Second was the power of Vader and the weakness of Obi-Wan. It didn't, if it is Anakin's mind thinking and wondering how powerful Obi-Wan is, or still is, or if he's still powerful, there's no doubt in my mind that Anakin understands Obi-Wan is in a weakened spot. Vader is using one arm physically to completely master the duel, while Obi-Wan is struggling with two hands on it. And at one point I said to Kaylee, look, he's only using one hand, and then he brings that left hand over and uses the Force to shove Obi-Wan. And it was, to me, the duel was so one-sided. It just reinforced for us as viewers where Obi-Wan Kenobi is in the use of the Force and confidence and everything else. And it also confirmed for us that Darth Vader is in complete control of this whole situation.
Vader says something like, the years have made you weak, Obi-Wan, but it isn't the years, it's his lack of discipline. Yeah, it's the mileage. It's that, and his lack of working with the Force and meditating in the Force and training, and he didn't keep up with his skills. If you're a runner all of your life, you don't run for a long time, you're going to get very, very winded and you're going to be rusty. You can get back to that shape quicker than other people, but you have to do it. I think there's a lot to talk about. Should it have happened? When I first heard that there was going to be an Obi-Wan Kenobi series, my first thought was, well, he can't face Vader, because how could that be? And then Hayden, I knew Hayden was going to be in it, and I was like, all right, okay, Hayden's going to be in it. So I'm sure, I try not to think like this, but you can't help but think, well, maybe they're going to meet each other, because you can't have Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor together in a series and not have them interact. Right. I mean, that would be kind of a crime, really. And so I thought, I'm going to trust the storytellers that they're going to make this work, because the line that we're also worried about is, we meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. Sure. That's still there. You still got, 19 years before A New Hope from the timeline. So you've got 9 years, but from Revenge of the Sith to New Hope is 19 years. This series has been 10 years since Revenge of the Sith. You've got 9 years until the confrontation on the Death Star. So that can still happen. They may very well see each other again. I hope that they do. But the things that I stand out, as you both mentioned very well, is, one hand, which is brutality. And, you can tell he's not as smooth as he was because he's more robotic, right? Mm-hmm. So the Force is an energy field created by all living things. Robotics are not living. So is his connection with the Force still strong? I don't know. It's different. He's obviously still the most powerful thing going, but he's not able to be as smooth because he's more like Frankenstein-ish, like you mentioned earlier, Corey.
Yep.
But it's very effective. I think the main reason I knew Obi-Wan was in trouble, besides the fear on his face, again, Ewan McGregor, incredible in this, is that Obi-Wan isn't saying anything. There are zero quips. Imagine Spider-Man fighting and never making a joke.
Yeah.
You would know it was bad.
Yep.
This is what Obi-Wan is like. Obi-Wan makes quips. He makes jokes. Not always in the heat of a battle, but he definitely says things. He doesn't say it here. The only thing he says here is when he screams out in pain. When I realized, and the lighting, by the way, as you both mentioned, and you just talked about, Tom, is just so gorgeous. I can't wait to talk to my son Peyton about this, because he works on film and he works on lighting, and I can't wait to see what he thinks about the sequence. But when I realized that Vader was igniting those embers and he was pulling Obi-Wan to burn him, the way that Anakin was burned, his immolation at the end of Revenge of the Sith, I had chills and I was horrified. Mm-hmm. And I said out loud, oh my gosh, he's going to torture him. He's going to burn him. And I was upset. This series is making me like Obi-Wan more. And it's making me like Vader less, which I didn't think possible. I didn't think it was possible. But again, the pathos here is so strong. And then at the end, you think he's just going to let him burn alive. No, you've mentioned a few times the cat and mouse thing, Corey. So he force pushes Obi-Wan out of the fire. And it also makes the fire go out, which we've never seen that happen. And then he says, your torment is only beginning, or something like that. And he wants the stormtroopers to capture him. And I'm sure he has a lot of horrible things in mind to hurt Obi-Wan Kenobi. But then he's rescued. And I agree. When I watched this for the first time, I thought, well, why doesn't he just put the fire out again? He just did it without even trying. Why isn't he doing it again? The only thing I can think of is the cat and mouse thing. He wants Obi-Wan. He's been burned, literally. And the pain must be excruciating. He's very, very injured. But now when Obi-Wan gets away, now I'm sure Vader feels like, I can find you. I've sensed you in the Force. I can find you, dude. I've already found you. He wants Obi-Wan to be tortured. He wants Obi-Wan to be upset. He wants Obi-Wan to get away. I can't imagine that Pablo Hidalgo and Matt Martin and Dave Filoni and Deborah Chow aren't fully aware that Vader could put out that fire without even trying and jump over that fire, or force pull this woman who's helping them down on the ground and just take care of them all at once. But that's not who Vader is. And the only way to know for sure is to see what happens for the rest of these episodes. So I'm aware of that too, but I just have to trust that there was a reason. And I guess cat and mouse, that seems to be the only way to go. And if I ever get the chance to talk to Deborah Chow again, I'm going to ask her.
Well, and you make a good point in the sense of, I was thinking back to their duel on the Death Star. he bests Obi-Wan there, and we see that, and then of course, they all see. Luke sees Vader saying that he started blasting, and Vader's right there. Like Vader could easily have choked out Luke and Han and Leia, and what I'm saying, he could have finished it right there, and he doesn't. Like you said, door closes, and he could have just stopped the door, right, and moved the door open. There are a lot of things Vader could have done, but he, like you said, he's setting up for his moment, or I don't know. It's like he's patiently
He's about
waiting,
the theatricality. Anakin's like that. He likes the theatricality.
Yeah, that's true. He's not he's not really a cold-blooded killer to the sense of
he is.
He breaks someone's neck. But I'm saying but he's not. He's doing it with authority in a sense of fear me. I am to be feared, and I'm to be trembled upon. I'm trying to think of Vader never ones up the enemy he's going after, he doesn't, if he doesn't have to, and I don't know why that is.
Really, in the comics he sure does.
In the comics,
yeah.
Well, see, I guess I'm trying to think of some of the comics I've read, but in the sense of just, I guess on film is what I've seen.
Fair.
He's
in Rebels,
he's very stalkish.
Yeah, stalkish.
He fights Ahsoka in Rebels too, right? So it's
and Kanan and Ezra, and I made the comparison to Michael Myers, the way he kind of stalks after people.
Well, he fought Kanan and Ezra. Was it season 2?
Season 2, episode 1. Yeah.
And so we see him just fling them around like it was nothing else either. So,
and then they put that thing on him, and he's like, he has to use the Force to get that.
That's right, the magnet or whatever.
Yeah, I think it was an AT-AT.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. So I mean, you made a good point, and it's the only way I can kind of conceive is he has control of the Force, but does not have control of his body. So he's it's I don't know, he kind of being a robot, but that he can't use it he's not full potential in the sense of, okay, well, I'll just get you next time. I mean, I know I'm gonna beat you or outlast you.
I want you to be sad. I want you to be sad
and petrified, like I'm sad and petrified. So muhaha. So
yeah. It's cold-blooded, man. It is, and that's why I'm like, oh, this is so nasty. I mean, this, and they told me on Coffee with Kenobi, look, this is Vader in his prime. This is his prime, but they didn't say physical prime. To me now, I'm seeing it in this is my interpretation, not necessarily what they meant. The prime of his psychological torment and the brutality that he exerts upon his environment.
Sure. Yeah.
Tom, anything you want to add to this?
I don't know. I'm just sitting here looking at my Kenner Star Wars figures that are up on the shelf, and I'm looking at the Vader and Obi-Wan completely different. It's when we saw Rogue One and we saw Vader enter at the very end of Rogue One, we said this changes the way I see Vader in A New Hope, and this miniseries continues that. To kind of, I guess, wrap on what we were saying about him letting Obi-Wan go, isn't it almost more torment for Obi-Wan to always have to look over his shoulder after being completely defeated here than to be captured by the stormtroopers?
Right. Very much so.
I mean, why does he let him go? Maybe because he knows that's more torment than what he could.
Yeah. And because he can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's fully in control, and he wants you to be petrified. It works.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
I always think, and I said this with some of the Marvel series, if the directors can make the audience feel like the main characters feel, then they've accomplished something pretty successful. And I think it's a triumphant piece of storytelling, and I'm very disappointed that we're halfway through already. Because this has really been a series for the ages. It's been great. It's been great hearing both of your perspectives, as I knew it would be. So thank you both again for coming back on the show. Corey, please let everybody know where they can reach out to you.
Sure, yeah. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter and tell me why you think Vader let him go, love to hear your perspective. Find me at Cory Clubb on Twitter, or if you want to send an email, coryc@coffeewithkenobi.com.
Mr. Teachers in the Dungeon, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Continue the conversation with me as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Twitter at Draftline, DRAFTLINE. as Dan just said, Teachers in the Dungeon. If you want a different kind of adventure, I suppose, catch our my podcast there, Teachers in the Dungeon. That is it by title on all of your favorite podcast catchers. And then, but if you'd like to give me a little bit longer or shoot me a longer thought on all of this, Tom G at coffeewithkenobi.com.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.